بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا وقرة أعيننا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Chapter 7 on page 58. Babu Uquq al-Walidain, the chapter to be disobedient to one's parents. Hadith number 15. We read and explained majority of this hadith, but there still remains one aspect of hadith number 15 to be explained. And likewise, hadith 17 we began, and we have yet to conclude and finish hadith number 16. So just for the barakah, we'll read these two hadith again, and we'll pick off from where we left off last week, inshaAllah. Hadith number 15. حدثنا مسدد قال حدثنا بشر بن مفضل قال حدثنا جريري عن عبد الرحمن بن أبي بكر عن أبي بكرة عن أبيه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ألا أنبئكم بأكبر الكبائر. Rasulullah ﷺ has said in this hadith, Allah, listen closely, shall I not tell you of the worst of the bad deeds, of the sins, shall I not tell you of the worst of them? Thalathan. And he repeated this 3 times. قالوا بلى يا رسول الله. The Sahaba who were sitting around listening to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, they said, please Ya Rasulullah, tell us what are the worst of the bad deeds. قال الإشراك بالله, to worship other or associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وعقوق الوالدين, and to disobey one's parents. وجلس وكان متكئا, and the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he was saying the first 2, he was leaning back. And when he got to the 3rd one, jalasa, he sat forward. And we explained this last week why he did this. Ala wa qawl az-zur. He says, listen closely. Qawl az-zuhr, qawl az-zur. Ma zala yukarriruha. He kept repeating this word, qawl az-zur, qawl az-zur. Hatta qultu laytahu sakata. Until I said to myself, I wish he would be quiet. And we spoke last week on why this Sahabi says, Laytahu sakata. Does anyone remember from the kids, the youth? We discussed how every time the Rasul ﷺ is repeating, Ala wa qawl az-zur, every time he's repeating it, the sin is getting worse and worse for whoever would do this deed. So now the Sahabi, he's thinking, I wish he would be quiet so the one who gets involved in this sin would not have such a bad deed on him, because every time Rasulullah ﷺ says it again, it gets that much worse for the one who gets involved in it. Qawl az-zur. Qawl az-zur, to lie, to tell lies. Now we will go on to the next hadith. Remember, we still have a portion of this hadith to discuss, but we'll continue with hadith number 16 and then come back to that point. The next hadith. حدثنا محمد بن سلام قال أخبرنا جرير عن عبد الملك بن عمير عن وراد كاتب مغيرة بن شعبة قال كتب معاوية إلى مغيرة. So the katib, the scribe of Mughira ibn Shu'bah radiyallahu ta'ala an, he says that once Muawiyah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he wrote a letter to Mughira. He wrote a letter to him saying what? Saying, اكتب إلي بما سمعت من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. He says, please write a letter to me telling me any hadith that you heard from the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Look at the hirs ala al-ilm. Look at the greed and the desire to have knowledge. That he himself is a sahabi. How many hadith do we think he knows? Maybe hundreds of hadith that he himself knows. But he's not satisfied with what he knows. He wants to know more. This is hirs ala al-ilm. This is to be greedy, to know more and have more knowledge. It's a beautiful attribute. Beautiful attribute. So, قال Warrad, he says, فَأَمْلَأَ عَلَيَّ. So he dictated to me, meaning he said it to me while I wrote. وَكَتَبْتُ بِيَدِي, and I wrote with my hand. إِنِّي سَمِعْتُهُ, I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam يَنْهَى عَنْ كَثْرَةِ السُّؤَالِ. Number one, he prohibited from asking many questions. Prohibited from asking many questions. And we discussed this last week, what it pertains to. وَإِضَاعَةِ الْمَالِ, in wasting or being excessive in spending wealth. إِضَاعَةِ الْمَالِ. وَعَنْ قِيلْ وَقَالْ, and getting involved in hearsay or gossip. The hadith right under it adds two more things. Inna Allah harrama, Allah has forbidden uquq al-ummahat. Number one, disobeying your mothers. Wa'd al-banat, and the burying of baby girls. As we know, this was a custom at the time of Jahiliyyah, that they would bury their daughters alive. So we'll get into this also. وَمَنَعَ وَهَاتٍ, and to refuse to give something and to take something. We'll discuss that. وَكَرِهَ لَكُمْ قِيلْ وَقَالْ, and he has disliked for you to get involved in hearsay. وَكَثْرَةُ السُّؤَالِ, and asking many questions. وَإِضَاءَةِ الْمَالِ, and to waste or squander wealth. So we spoke previously on the كَثْرَةِ السُّؤَالِ. From hadith number 16 remains إِضَاءَةِ الْمَالِ. إِضَاءَةِ الْمَالِ means to waste or squander wealth. Waste or squander wealth. As we must understand that this wealth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has entrusted us with is a very, very great blessing. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Al-malu wal-banun zinatul hayatid dunya, that wealth and children are an adornment of this worldly life. SubhanAllah, nowadays everyone recognizes that wealth is an adornment of this world. But nowadays there's a new fashion where less children is more beautiful. This ayah says, Al-malu wal-banun zinatul hayatid dunya. Children are the beauty that we have. But because we don't want to give up our lifestyle and sacrifice, the present day culture is no. It is for this reason that the birth rate of many of the countries is going down greatly, while the Muslim population continues to, mashallah, grow. In Surah Adiyat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِنَّهُ لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls mal, wealth, by a different name. What does Allah call wealth in this verse? Khair. What is khair? Both Urdu and Arabic is the same thing. It means something good. Allah in the Quran is calling mal khair. In another verse, in taraka khayra, in taraka khayra. In this verse again, Allah is calling wealth what? Khair. Calling wealth what? Khair. So the first thing we need to recognize is how this wealth is such a great blessing. And of course we live in a part of the world where I maybe not need to emphasize how much of a blessing it is, because we all value wealth very much. But in order to understand ida'at al-mal, we have to stress the point of how great a blessing and ni'mah that this wealth is. In another hadith, once Amr bin As radiallahu ta'ala anhu is standing next to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says to him, in this hadith in Mustadrak al-Hakim, he says to him, I want you to go get your armor and get dressed and come back. So he goes and he comes back. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is doing wudu. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sawwabahu. He looks him up and down. And he says to him, I want to send you on a journey. I want to make you the leader of an army to go out. And Allah will bless you with a lot of wealth and spoils of war. So he says to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, no, I didn't become Muslim for wealth. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says a beautiful hadith here. Na'imma bil mal as-salih li rajul as-salih. What a great blessing pure wealth is for a pure individual. But the condition here is pure wealth. Do we notice Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying bil mal as-salih? Not haram wealth. No. The wealth has to be tayyib. The wealth has to be tayyib, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put barakah in that wealth. Then that wealth is a blessing. But if the source of the wealth is haram, how can you ever expect any khair from that? And it's amazing that in the hadith we find on Yawm al-Qiyamah, one of the first questions to be asked is, where did you get your wealth? And secondly, how did you spend your wealth? So before we discuss ida'at al-mal and israf and wasting and squandering wealth, we need to focus on the first aspect of where are we gaining our wealth. See, those of us who are studying in the Aqeedat Tahawi class, we discussed a topic last weekend where that Allah is raziq. Allah is the provider. It is His responsibility to provide. All we have to do is pick the sabab, the means. Allah will provide. If you choose a halal means, Allah will provide. If you choose a haram means, you will still get your rizq, but it will be haram. It's up to you. The rizq is promised. وَفِي السَّمَاءِ رِزْقُكُمْ وَمَا تُوعَدُونَ فَوَرَبِّ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ إِنَّهُ لَحَقٌّ مِثْلَ مَا أَنَّكُمْ تَنْطِقُونَ. This ayah is absolutely beautiful ayah. In this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, listen to the eloquence of this ayah. وَفِي السَّمَاءِ رِزْقُكُمْ وَمَا تُوعَدُونَ. Allah says, in the skies, in the heavens is your rizq, your provisions. It's written for you. وَمَا تُوعَدُونَ, and whatever your promise. فَوَرَبِّ. First thing, this is a oath. Allah is taking an oath. You know how sometimes you want to make something serious and you say to your buddy, Wallahi man, Wallahi. So now he believes you, right? This is a oath from Allah. فَوَرَبِّ السَّمَاءِ. Then, for those who know Arabic, إِنَّهُ. This is ta'keed. Ta'keed means emphasis. إِنَّهُ لَحَقٌّ. Lam ta'keed. How many emphasizing words are in this one verse for those who kept up with me? MashaAllah. See? MashaAllah. Every week you have to come. 3 emphasis in this verse. Once a Bedouin was listening to this verse, a person that lives a Bedouin, and they understand the balagha of the Quran very deeply. As soon as he heard this verse, he said, who's the one that upset my Lord that he has to take 3 times emphasis? We believe you, Ya Allah. There's no need. He realized the tone in the verse. My point in telling us this verse is that our rizq is in the heavens. It's set. إِنَّ الرِّزْقَ لَيَطْلُبُ الْعَبْدِ كَمَا يَطْلُبُهُ أجله. This hadith we should just put in front of our eyes. It's very short. We should look at this hadith every day. Verily the rizq looks for you the way death looks for you. Verily rizq looks for you the way your death looks for you. You think you're looking for the rizq? No. Your rizq is looking for you. Of course we have to take the means, but we have to know in our mind, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is providing us with this rizq. In another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said about wealth. We're discussing how great of a ni'mah wealth is. He says, إِنَّ الْمَالِ خَذِرٌ حُلْوٌ. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 1400 years ago, as if his words are speaking to us today. Look at the wording. إِنَّ الْمَالِ خَذِرٌ حُلْوٌ. Khadir, what is Khadir? Who's Khidr? Who's Khidr? Yes. Why is he called Khidr?
Because he was a lot of knowledge.
No. Why is he called Khidr?
He wears green.
Close. Good guess. Why is he called Khidr?
Because he was wise.
No. Khidr comes from this word Khadir, which means green. It is narrated in the narrations that wherever he would sit, it would grow vegetation just from his presence sitting there. It is for this reason he was named Al-Khidr, coming from the word green. The point is, in this hadith, Rasulullah ﷺ is calling mal khadirun. It's green. Is he not talking to us today? Is he not talking to us today? Subhanallah. Subhanallah. Khadirun hulwan. Sweet. It's sweet. فَمَنْ أَخَذَهُ بِحَقِّهِ. Whoever takes it with justice, with balance, fairness, بُورِكَ لَهُ فِيهِ. There will be much blessing in this wealth for him. وَنِعْمَ الْمَعُونَ. This is the part I wanted to emphasize. Rasulullah ﷺ is saying about wealth, نِعْمَ الْمَعُونَ, that it's a great helper. See, these are things we all know. We all know the value of wealth. But I wanted to show from the hadith that Rasulullah ﷺ is telling us how helpful wealth is. Not that our deen says get rid of wealth. You don't need it. No, just live in the masjid. No, Rasulullah ﷺ is telling us that take your wealth, but take it with justice, not from haram means. وَمَنْ أَخَذَهُ بِغَيْرِ حَقِّهِ. Whoever takes wealth without justice, لَمْ يُبَارِكُ لَهُ فِيهِ. He will not be blessed in it. وَكَانَ كَالَّذِي يَأْكُلْ وَلَا يَشْبَعْ. This hadith is just today. He says the person who takes wealth and doesn't take it with justice, he won't have any barakah. And he will be like the one who eats but is never satiated. He eats and never gets full. No matter how much furniture, we need another set. How good the car, we need another one. How good this, we need another one. Ya'kul wa la yashba. He eats and eats and eats, but never satisfied. I just bought you an iPod. You want the next one? Oh, it's the same thing. They didn't change anything. Ya'kul wa la yashba. He keeps eating, but he's never satisfied. So this is what wealth is. We have to understand the greatness of wealth. Now, in this hadith, if we look at the wording, Rasulullah ﷺ says, إِضَاءَةِ الْمَالِ. Mal, mim, alif, lam. What is mal? مَا يَمِيلُ إِلَيْهِ الطَّبْعَ. Mal is that thing which we are naturally inclined to. So it doesn't mean just wasting cash. It may be food. Anything gold, silver, ma yamilu ilayhi taba, that thing which the insan, the human being, is naturally inclined to. Now, in the Quran and Sunnah, for those taking notes, mashallah, there's two terms for wasting wealth. Two terms for wasting wealth. Al-israf, israf, alif sin, ra, alif fa, or in English write it however, and tabdhir. Tabdhir. Two words. Now, I want to define to everyone what israf is, so that we can look at our life and see if there's israf in our lives. So first we're going to define israf, and then everyone should introspect and see where the israf is coming in. So now, in order to explain israf, what we do is Imam Raghib Asbahani, he breaks israf into two categories. Blameworthy, meaning not permissible. Blameworthy, not permissible. And praiseworthy. Two categories. Now, to understand this, we have to understand that there are two aspects we have to look at. One is if the place where the money is being spent is haram, this is israf walau dirham, even if it's a penny. If you're spending money on something haram, even if it's 1 cent, this is called israf, going past the limits, wasting wealth. So the first thing is where you spend it. Now, let's take it to the next thing. What if you're spending it in a praiseworthy thing? Meaning, you're spending it for sadaqah, or you're spending it for iyalik, your family, and the asasul bayt, the things of your house. Now, there comes another gauge. Two things. Is it within your means? Number one. And number two is your niyyah. Your niyyah. Your niyyah. I'll give you an example from the time of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It was narrated that one time Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was gathering and collecting wealth for a battle that was going to occur. So he's telling all the Sahaba to bring a lot of wealth. Bring as much as you can. We need it for this journey. And this time we know Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu brought everything. What did he leave at home? Nothing. Nothing. He brought everything he owned. And Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu brought? Very good, half. Now Abu Bakr is giving everything he has. He has nothing left at home. Now, another person comes with a piece of gold the size of an egg. Rasulullah ﷺ takes it and throws it back at the person. Sahaba say, if it hit him, it would have hurt him bad. But the Rasulullah ﷺ threw it back at this person. And he says, why are people giving us wealth and tomorrow they will be begging people for money? What do we learn here? Abu Bakr gave all of his wealth. Rasulullah ﷺ did not say anything. This person only gave a little bit. Why? Because it was in the means of Abu Bakr, it was out of the means of this other Sahabi. So when the expenses are out of our means, we have entered into the next category called israf. These things sound very easy to us, common sense. And honestly, to be frank, for Daisies, it is a common sense. Okay, it is. For Indo-Pak, it is very common sense. We don't have the money, we don't spend. In America, this is not the concept. In America, write this down. You spend money you don't have. You spend money you don't have for things you don't need to impress people you don't even know. That's what America is about. Spend money you don't have. Why? Because we need this economy to go. We'll give you a loan for a house, even though we know when the interest rates rise, you won't even be able to pay it. But we need to push the housing industry. Who cares if it collapses later? Don't worry. Spend money you don't have on things you don't need to impress people you don't even know. So Islam is teaching us. A lot of times I have to bring things into context. That I'm saying, brother, why are you telling us not to spend out of our means? Because the world doesn't do it today. Because we don't do it today. So the next thing is out of the means. The next thing, let's say you're spending on a permissible thing. And you're spending within your means. Now there's one more thing. Niyyah. A person has a lot of wealth. He buys the nicest car he can find. He needs a car to get him from point A to point B. So he buys the nicest car he can find. He has the wealth for it, he buys the car. Another person buys that same exact car, he has the wealth too. For one it's israf, for another it's not israf. We can't tell by the outward. What matters is the niyyah. If the person bought this car with the niyyah that this car will get me from place A to place B, it is a good car, it will provide my family and it will be a source of khair for us, alhamdulillah. As the hadith tells us, subhanallah. I'm going to tell this hadith, we'll get back to the point. There's one hadith when Abi Ahwas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu narrates from his father. He says, this is a beautiful hadith. Listen closely. أتيت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في ثوب دون. That one day I came to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم and I was wearing cheap clothes, raggedy clothes, if we want to use those terms. Dunin, like not good clothing. Subhanallah. Some of us have an image of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but we need to look at the hadith on how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says to him, Alaka malun? Do you have money? Do you have money? Qal, Naam, yes, I have money. Qal, min ayyil mal? What kind of mal do you have? What kind of wealth? He says, قَدْ آتَانِيَ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْإِبِلِ وَالْغَنَمِ وَالْخَيْلِ وَالرَّقِيقِ. I have slaves, I have horses, I have goats, I have everything. I have camels. So Rasulullah sets him straight. He says, listen, فَإِذَا أَتَاكَ اللَّهُ مَالًا فَلْيُرَى أَثْرُ نِعْمَةِ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكَ وَكَرَامَتِهِ. When Allah gives you wealth, then let the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala show on you. Think about these words. When the blessing of Allah, when the wealth comes to you, فَلْيُرَى نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ. Let the blessing of Allah be seen. You're wearing cheap clothes but you have wealth? No. It's a ni'mah of Allah. Let the blessing be seen. So we see the balance. Let's go back to this situation. One person bought the car because he needs it. Bought the nicest car he can find. Paid cash for it, whatever. Nice car. Other person bought the same car. But why did he buy this car? Because the other guy got it. This is israf. Even though he has the wealth, even though it's for a permissible thing, now it's haram, it's not permissible. He did it to show off. Now you're doing israf. Again, these are things we can't see. You can't look and say, look at him showing off. You don't know. You don't know his niyyah. But the point is for us to judge ourselves. That when I spend money on this thing, what is my niyyah? Am I getting it because family A just got new furniture, so hey, we got to get new furniture too? Or because we really need it? So these are the rules of israf. Let's recap the rules. There's only 3. Let's recap them. Number 1, 1 penny in haram is israf. 1 penny in haram is israf. Number 2, spending in permissible things has to be in the capacity of the individual. You have to have that much, enough to spend on that thing. And third one, your niyyah has to be correct in the thing that you spend on. The niyyah has to be correct. The next question is, why do people get involved in israf? Why do people get involved in wasting and spending excessively? There's around 6 reasons why people generally get involved in israf, Muslims. Number 1, because of their lack of knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah. The Quran and Sunnah being complete tell us a complete lifestyle, complete how to do everything, even spending wealth. In Surah Bani Israel, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَجْعَلْ يَدَقَ مَغْلُولَةً إِلَىٰ عُنُقِكَ وَلَا تَبْسُطْهَا كُلَّ الْبَسْطِ فَتَقْعُدَ مَلُومًا مَحْسُورًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this ayah that do not put your hands around your neck, مَغْلُولَة, like thus. This is referring to being very stingy. Being very stingy. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says on the opposite end, وَلَا تَبْسُطْهَا الْكُلَّ الْبَسْطِ. But don't let everything out. And then He tells why. فَتَقْعُدَ مَلُومًا مَحْسُورًا. If you do this, you're going to sit back with a lot of regret and remorse. What kind of regret? When we get involved in israf, one of the first things that happens to a society is obesity. It was never heard of that the whole nation is overweight. But now we're living in a time when the collective nation is overweight. Why? Israf. Israf. Going beyond the limits. Going beyond what's necessary. What happens next? We become very lethargic, lazy. Why is salah so hard? Because we ate so much. We went beyond the limits. So that's the first reason. That people are ignorant of the orders of the Quran and what the Quran says. The Quran is teaching us how to spend our wealth. The Sunnah is teaching us how to spend. But you think you have to go to economics class to learn how to spend. No, you have to come back to the Quran. The Quran will tell you how to do everything. If we open it up and read it. If we read it. Number 2. The second reason which people are normally inclined to israf is because they grew up in a household which was always inclined to overspending and israf. So this is our responsibility as parents to correct this right away, that our children do not see us wasting wealth at all. Because once it's embedded, see what happens is, this is what happens. If I see my father doing something, and then my father, he leaves the world. Now, in my mind, my father is salih. He's salih. My father is of the sulaha, of the pious people. Whatever he was doing is okay. So now, I end up doing the same thing. I saw my father doing it. Are you going to say my father was wrong? And this is exactly what the Kuffar of Quraysh said to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That are you trying to curse our forefathers? Where are our forefathers? In hell then? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not get into that. But the point is, whatever you do, although you know you yourself are make mistakes and do things wrong, your children look at you with kamal. That this person is my father. He's salih. He's good. If he was doing it, it's okay. And this is how things keep going on from generation to generation. So if we have the habit of doing something, we need to rectify ourselves. Why? Because I may know in my heart that I'm wrong. But my children don't know that that's what I'm thinking about myself. They're going to take that thing to be a good deed. Number 3. What's the third reason why people normally spend excessively? This happens when people, the third reason is not understanding the nature of the world. Not understanding how this world works. Those of us who are older, we understand. You may have today, but you won't have necessarily tomorrow. So we understand the importance of saving. And saving for that rainy day, as we call it. Those who don't understand the nature of this world, they don't understand this. So this is the third reason. The fourth reason, which happens to a lot of us. A lot of us, we lived in very strange circumstances somewhere else in the world. Or even in this part of the world. Then when we get ease and wealth, we can't control. It is for this reason that the Sahaba said that we were trusted with poverty and we were patient. But we were trusted with wealth and we did not pass that test. So the fourth reason for those who are keeping up, the fourth reason for one having the habit of getting involved in israf is a lot of times we lived in strange circumstances, and when we get ease, we can't control ourselves. Number 5, loving to be known. Loving to have all eyes on you. To be very conspicuous in your character. This is detrimental. Number 6, which is very bad, imitation of others. Many times we spend wealth. Why do you want that iPhone? Do you really want it because it's a good phone? Or do you want it just because every single kid in your class has it? You have to ask yourself these questions when you're going and picking that thing. Do I really want this? Why do I want this? Because all of them have it? That's a horrible reason. Because you yourself have to be your own individual. You can't follow everyone, especially for the youth. So you have to. This is the sixth reason why people get involved in israf. So this is a very dangerous thing, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us in the Quran, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. Allah says, eat and drink, but don't exceed the limits. Stay within our means. So this was إِضَاعَةِ mal. And we discussed the three aspects in way wasting wealth happens. Any other expenditures would not be considered إِضَاعَةِ mal. It is for these three reasons why the saying is that just the way a rich person can do israf, a poor person can do israf likewise, for the reasons we discussed above. The next thing that we need to turn our attention to is, if we look in Hadith 15, we left a word, وَقَوْلِ الزُّورِ, and the translation is to tell lies. And now in this hadith we are left at the words قِيل وَقَال. قِيل وَقَال literally means hearsay or gossip. We have to understand something, brothers and sisters, of the utmost importance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the sifa of mutakallim, kalam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Balad, أَلَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُ عَيْنَيْنِ وَلِسَانًا وَشَفَتَيْنِ. Have we not given him eyes, mouth, a tongue? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Rahman, خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانِ عَلَّمَهُ الْبَيَانِ. We created man, and we taught him eloquence. We taught him how to speak, how to articulate himself. Aristotle himself was one of the first to classify human beings as al-hayawan al-natiq, the animal that speaks. Man is known as hayawan al-natiq, the animal that speaks. This gift, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made Himself a sifa of, kalam. This is a gift given to Bani Adam as a blessing which was not given to any other of the animal kingdom. This ability to articulate, to speak, to express what we feel. The virtues and the greatness of speech and the tongue can be noticed in one thing. We have smell, sight, touch, and taste, and hearing. All of these attributes and these abilities, they work within their field. The hearing can do nothing with the smell. The hearing can do nothing with the sight. There's no connection. Likewise, the sight has no connection to the mouth. The sight has no connection to the ears. They do their own work. The ability to speak is such an ability that we can express every single one of the feelings we get from each and every one of these attributes. We can express what we see through our tongue. We can express what I heard through our tongue. We can express what I tasted through our tongue. The ability of this tongue is incredible. It is through this tongue that we say, I love you, and the hearts melt. It is through this tongue that we say, I hate you, and the wars begin. It is through speech which begins and starts world wars. Speech is a great, great, great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the English language, what do you call a person that cannot speak? Not deaf. That's one that, yes. What is it? Say it louder. You can only say it this time. Dumb. Dumb. Literally. What is a ajam? What is ajam? Those who cannot speak. The Arab who knew Arabi said all of the non-Arabs, they can't speak. They're ajam. Because they can't articulate the way we speak. They don't know what it means to speak. We have ibarah. They're ajam. This gift of speech is a great gift. Every single word has extreme power. It can do a lot. Every word. And once you realize how great this gift of speech is, how much wealth and time and effort do we spend teaching our children how to speak? From the day they're born and the day they say that first word, party. How much happiness is there? He spoke. It's a feat. It's amazing. Okay, it seems like you're exaggerating. No. This speech is a great blessing given to Bani Adam. But as much effort as what happens next? We teach the children how to speak. What's the next effort we do? We teach them how not to speak. Be quiet right now. Don't speak. But you know what happened? I realized through my own self. I was a kid that could never be quiet. And it stayed with me. Many of us never learned back then how to stay quiet. Until today we don't know how to stay quiet. We don't know how to control our speech. The most amazing racehorse, the most gifted racehorse, however great this horse may be, if it's uncontrollable, it has no value. The moment this horse can be controlled, oh, now we have a racehorse. This tongue is very, very dangerous. It has great power. And it is for this reason that in the Quran Allah says, مَا يَلْفِظُ مِنْ قَوْلٍ إِلَّا لَدَيْهِ رَقِيبٌ عَتِيدٌ. That they do not utter a word except that there is a guard writing everything they say. Every word that we are speaking being written down by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Uqbah ibn Amr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu once asked Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam a beautiful question. Mal najah? What is najat? What is success? You know what Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to him? Amsik alayka lisanak. You want to know what success is? Just control your tongue. Just control your tongue. Not 1,000 rakat, not $1,000 sadaqah. Just control your tongue. That's it. Another hadith, سئل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن أكثر ما يدخل الناس الجنة. فقال تقوى الله. Number one, he was asked, what will be the thing that brings people to Jannah the most? He said, taqwa of Allah. And husnul khuluq, good manners. And then the same person asked, وَسُئِلَ عَنْ أَكْثَرِ مَا يَدْخُلُ النَّارِ النَّاسِ. He said, al-ajwafan, the two hollow organs, al-fam wal-faraj, that the mouth and sharamga, the private. That if we can control our tongue, we are guaranteed Jannah. Why? Why? Again, I express these words. Allah says, إِذَا أَرَادَ أَن يَكُونَ شَيْءٍ كُن فَيَكُونَ. That when Allah wants something to come, He says kun, says, spoke, kalam. This kalam is mu'athir. Kalam has the power to affect and change many things. It's not just something that's very light. It has a lot of power. That's why Rasulullah ﷺ is telling us, control your speech. Mu'az ibn Jabal radiallahu ta'ala anhu asked a question. He's sitting down like us. He says, Ya Rasulullah, anu'akhidhu bima naqul? Will we be taking account for what we say? We just chatter away, just chat, just going. Anu'akhidhu bima naqul? Rasulullah ﷺ says to him, ثَقِلَتْكَ أُمُّكَ. May your mother be harsh on you. وَهَلْ يَكُبُّ الرَّجُلُ في النار على مناخره إلا بما قال أو كما إلا حصائد ألسنتهم. قال Rasulullah ﷺ that he said, may your mother be harsh on you. A person will be turned over in hell on his face only because of the words he said. Another hadith tells us that sometimes a person says a word. لا يلقى لها بالا. He says a word that he didn't even think about. And Allah loves it so much that because of that word, he goes to Jannah forever. And in the same hadith, Rasulullah ﷺ says, but sometimes a person says a word, لا يلقى لها بال. He didn't even think about it. He doesn't even remember. How did he do istighfar for that? He didn't even remember he said it. For that, يلقى في النار. For kalima. For a kalima. A kalima. Subhanallah. The word for a word in Arabic is kalima. Do you know the other thing that's called a kalim? When you get a wound. When you get a wound. انظر في اللغة. When you get a wound. Kalima. Yaklim. Means to get a wound. Why? Because they both have an effect. They both are the result. And another thing, the word is lafadha. Love. Lafadh is the word in Arabic for word. It's also the verb for throwing something. Because when you speak, it's gone. You can't get it back. Once you throw it, it's gone. There's another beautiful hadith I want to narrate. And it's narrated on Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. One time, ra'a Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu wa huwa yamuddu lisanahu biyadi. Imagine this. One time, Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he runs into Abu Bakr, who's the Khalifa at the time. And he's holding his tongue with his hand. Abu Bakr is holding his tongue with his hand. فقال له ما تصنع يا خليفة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. He says, what are you doing, O Khalifa of the Rasul? Why are you holding your tongue? What are you doing? He says, قال هذا أوردني موارد. This thing is sending me to hell. This is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. He is known as Siddiq, the most truthful after the Anbiya, the greatest of this ummah. If the entire ummah is weighed against Abu Bakr, he will weigh more on Yawm al-Qiyamah. This is Abu Bakr who spent the night in the cave with Rasulullah ﷺ. Umar radiyallahu ta'ala says, I would give my whole life to have that one night you had. This is Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who Allah calls Thani Ithnain, one of the two, referring to him. It is him who did hijrah with Rasulullah ﷺ. It is him who every day was with Rasulullah ﷺ. And he's saying, my tongue is sending me to hell. Ikhwan, what is our situation? He thinks his tongue is sending him to hell. Where are we? Some of the Salaf used to write down everything they said in the day and then look over, did I have to say this? Did I have to say this? Did I have to say this? Can you write down what you say in an hour? I have a trick. We all want to control our tongue. This is what you do. Try it. You're going to be amazed. Take a tape recorder. Do it. You're going to be amazed. Take a tape recorder like this. Turn it on. Put it in your jib. Put it in your pocket. You'll forget about it. Put the hold on so it doesn't turn off. You will forget after 20 minutes. Listen later. All of that the angels are writing. You will be amazed at what you say. And you'll feel ashamed. How did I say that? That wasn't me talking. No way. Try it one time. Try it one time. And then this will begin to rectify. Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala is narrated that he used to put a stone, a clean stone, under his tongue. So that whenever he would talk, it would brush up against his tongue and it would just create a little hardship when he spoke. So he would have to think twice before speaking. The point is that this speech is a great, great, great gift given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And unfortunately, we never learned how to speak. I don't mean the way to speak. We never learned when we should and when we should not speak. Imam Ghazali wrote in his book, just a chapter on the tongue, over 20 afat, 20 calamities or problems of the tongue. Over 20 that one can get involved in. Let's go over some. Number 1, al-ghiba. Ghiba is to speak behind someone that which they will not like. Even if you say, I can say it in his face, it's still ghiba. It doesn't change by you saying, I could say this in their face. No. It's still ghiba. And what does ghiba? Do we know the effect of ghiba? Rasulullah ﷺ once asked the Sahaba, Mal muflis? Who's the bankrupt person? The Sahaba said, the bankrupt is the one with la dirham wa la dinar. He has no wealth. Rasulullah ﷺ says, no. You know who bankrupt is? The bankrupt is the one who comes on Yawm al-Qiyamah with salah, sadaqah, sawm, everything. وَلَكِنْ شَتَمَ هَذَا وَضَرَبَ هَذَا. He cursed at this person. He hit this person. He backbited this person. So what will happen? Allah will take his hasanat, his good deeds, and begin to give them to all those people he spoke bad about. Until he has no more. No more deeds left. But now there's still a long line. Now what? There's still a long line of people left. But I have no more hasanat. Allah will say, no problem. Take your bad deeds and put him on his deeds. Do we have a lot of sawm? Do we have a lot of sadaqah to give away? Do you have a lot of salah to give away? One Sahabi says he was accused of backbiting someone. He said, if I was to backbite anyone, I backbite my mother. I don't love you enough to backbite you. No one got it. He said, I don't love you enough to backbite you. I don't want you to have my deeds. I will not backbite you. That's ghiba. Number 2, namima. Namima is to speak in between people, telling tales in a way that it starts something. You know what he just said? Man, he just said that about you. And then you go to him or her, did you hear what he just said? This is called namima. This is a major sin. Next thing, al-kidhb. Kidhb is what we're talking about here today. Qawl al-zur. Qawl al-zur has many meanings. One of them is to lie. This is the primary meaning of qawl al-zur. Lying in Islam is considered one of the signs of nifaq, of hypocrisy. This is a sign of a munafiq. إِذَا حَدَّثَ كَذِبَ. When he speaks, he tells a lie. Why is lying and nifaq, hypocrisy, tied together? Look at the nature of both of them and tell me why they are tied together.
Because when we're...
Basically, hypocrisy is that inside is one thing and outside you're showing another thing. And lying is the exact same thing. It's for this reason in Surah Munafiqun, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, say the surah, إِذَا جَاءَكَ الْمُنَافِقُونَ قَالُوا نَشْهَدُ الحمد لله قَالُوا نَشْهَدُ إِنَّكَ لَرَسُولُ اللَّهِ. that we bear witness you are Rasulullah. Wallahu ya'lamu innaka rasulu. Allah knows that you are Rasul. Wallahu ya'lamu innal munafiqina lakathibun. Look at this ayah. Allah is calling the munafiqeen liars. Are they lying about Allah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam being the Rasul? No. He's calling them liars because they're lying about what they believe. They're saying it, but they're lying. They don't believe it. So the hadith have told us that lying does not join with the mu'min. When Rasulullah ﷺ was taken for Mi'raj, Isra and Mi'raj, he saw different punishments being given to different people of Jahannam. One punishment he saw was that there was a person kneeling down, and a person or angel behind him was taking a very sharp hook and cutting this person all the way back to his ear. And then the angel would come to this side and do the exact same thing. When this side was done, this side would be healed, and then the angel would do the same thing. Rasulullah ﷺ said, please tell me who this person is. He says, this is the liar who told lies until his lies reached the horizon. Hatta yablugh al-afaq. Until his lies reached the horizon. You know what's amazing about this hadith? I can't imagine that the Sahaba understood how one lie could pass to the horizons. But today, we see lies go circles around the world in seconds. Think about this hadith. Hatta yablugh al-afaq. At this time, Rasulullah ﷺ is saying he's a liar, and his lies reach the horizon. At that time, they must be thinking, how can this one person's lies go that far? Today, subhanallah, they print it one day, and it's in the printing press, and it's reaching the horizons. Forget printing now. They just post it. They just post it. You put it on Facebook, done. Your lie reached the horizons. So this is a very, very dangerous thing, lying. And we need to teach the children the importance and the severity of lying. Unfortunately, what we did was the first time they lied, what did we do? Remember the first time they lied? When they're very little. Did you take that? And they said no. What did we do? We smiled. He's smart. We praised him. Now, lying doesn't mean anything. I have a teacher, and his wife is my family's teacher. So she told me a story that she said that they were studying Riyadh al-Salihin, and she was saying that when Huzaifa, who was their young boy, one day he took Fudayl, one of his toys, and he hid it. And the mother came and said, did you take Fudayl's toys? He said, no. So she said, did you just lie? Did you just lie? You lied. It's such a big thing. Hudayfa went, did wudu, prayed 2 rakats, and begged Allah for istighfar. What does that show? He was only 6 years old, 5 years old. But the point is, we have to embed inside of them. Forget Pinocchio. They don't need that. We have the Hadith al-Rasul. We can teach them through the Hadith that lying is not a sifa of a mu'min. And subhanallah, every child is born truthful. They learn how to lie. Every single child is born truthful. It's until they learn it and you don't stop it that the quality of lying comes. So there are 6 levels of lying. There are 6 levels of lying. Number 1, the worst. Lying against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Aftara ala Allahi al-kadhiba. That they create forged lies against Allah. This is what the Jews and the Christians did in their books, writing things that were not written before, adding many things in and taking things out. The first level of lying is lying against Allah. Number 2, lying against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said in the hadith, "Man kadhaba alayya muta'ammidan falyatabawwa maq'adahu min an-nar." That whoever tells a lie against me purposely, let him prepare his place in hell. Why? Because when we lie against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this, it is as if it's from Allah, and we are changing the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ulama say, from this you learn, if you don't know a hadith, do not say the hadith. You can't say, brother, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this. If you do not know the words, you have to stay quiet. Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, his student was traveling with him. He says, I traveled with him for 1 year. I only heard him say, Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam one time. Why? Were they talking about sports? No. But they were careful about lying and saying the wrong thing. Before we go on, one time Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who was teaching tafsir, one time after 5 years, he said the words, Qala Rasulullah. His students say his face turned red. His eyes got red. He got scared. And he started saying, O kama qal, O kadhalika, O kama qal, O hakadha, O hakadha. He kept saying over and over again, it was close to this, something like this, O kama qal, something like this. Why? Because they were so scared to lie against the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if we don't know a hadith, don't say, brother, you know, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this. No, brother, if you don't know for sure, then be careful, very careful. Be very careful. Number 3, lying against people. Lying against people. This is referring to shahadat az-zur, false witness. That you say such and such person did something and you saw it and you didn't see it. Number 4 is lying to people. This is the lowest of all 4. And this is what qawl az-zur is referring to. Now, when is it permissible to lie? Next topic. When is it permissible to lie?
When you have money in your wallet and your wife asks for someone.
Okay, listen closely. He's right. Listen closely. When is it permissible to lie? Imam Nawawi says this. Please pay attention. It's very concise but beautiful statement. You don't have to write it, but listen closely. Imam Nawawi says this. Speech is a means to an objective. Speech is a means to an objective. So any praiseworthy objective which can be reached without lying, it is haram to lie. It is haram to lie. But if it is not possible to reach the objective except through lying, then lying becomes permissible. I'll explain. Let's look at the hadith. Rasulullah ﷺ says, لَيْسَ الْكَذَّابَ الَّذِي يُصْلِحُ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ فَيُمْنَى خَيْرٍ أَوْ يَقُولُ خَيْرًا. That a liar is not one who joins people through his lies. He reconciles people through his lies. No, this is not lying. And another hadith to clarify, Kulthum narrates, وَلَمْ أَسْمَعَهُ يُرَقِّسُ فِي شَيْءٍ مِمَّا يَقُولُ النَّاسِ إِلَّا ثَلَاثًا. She says, I never heard Rasulullah ﷺ giving permission to lie except in 3 situations. You can write these down. Write these down. Number 1, al-harb, war. Number 2, harb. Number 2 is islah bayn an-nas. What does this mean? This means you know that brother Ibrahim is having some tough times with brother Talabi, right? Na'udhu billah min dhalika. Example. So now you go to brother Talabi and say, brother, I just heard Ibrahim saying, you know, brother Talabi is such a great student. He asks questions that benefits us. He takes care of the children so much. He's a great brother. So then you go to Ibrahim and you say, Ibrahim, I just heard Talabi saying, you know what he said, man? He said, you know Ibrahim, he's always in the masjid. He's always doing khidmah of the masjid. He's there early for Jummah. He's a great brother. They're both lies. This is good. The problem with us is, this is shaitan. We are truthful when we should lie, and we lie when we should be truthful. You're going to go to Ibrahim, you know what Talabi just said, man? He said this about you. This is when Sharia says lie, brother. Don't tell the truth. But no, I'm going to be truthful. I have to tell him the truth. No, lie. It's okay. Okay, wait. There's a lot more I want to get to and time is running. Next thing. وَالْحَدِيثُ الرَّجُلْ إِمْرَأَتَهُ. And when a man speaks to his wife, he can lie. It's not done. The hadith is not done. وَحَدِيثُ الْمَرْأَةُ زَوْجَهَا. And a woman speaking to her husband can lie too. Both situations, it's permissible. Why?
Just about the money.
Wait 1 second, please.
You're in trouble, brother.
The importance of keeping the love and muhabba between the husband and wife is of the utmost in Islam. The thing which shaitan loves the most is to see tafriq bayn al-zawj, bayn al-izdiwaj. He loves to see this. This is what he loves the most. So if you have to tell a lie in order to keep that love there, it is permissible for the greater good of the situation. Now let me go on to one more thing. But in each one of these situations where it is permissible to lie, it is better to do something else. Write this word down, called tawriya. Tawriya. Ta, waw, ra, ya, ha. Tawriya. Tawriya is to be ambiguous, to beat around the bush. To say something where the person thinks you're saying one thing but you mean another thing. I'll give you an example. The definition is to say something, the person thinks you mean one thing, but you mean something else in your head.
But it's not a lie.
But it's not a lie. So in all of these situations where it's permissible to lie, it's always better to do tawriya than to lie. Now, I'll give you an example. Once, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was traveling doing hijrah, and Abu Bakr was with him. Now they're being chased by the kuffar of Makkah. So they run into someone who knows Abu Bakr. So this person says, "Hey, who's that guy with you?" He can't say Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or else they're done. He says, "Had, Yahdin as-Sabil. This is my guide. He's showing me the way." Beautiful. Abu Bakr Siddiq. What is he saying? This is my guide. He's showing me the way. Okay. Another time Rasulullah ﷺ did it.
I'm sorry.
Basically, a very good point. The brother is saying that you had to understand at that time, in order to travel somewhere, they didn't have GPS. You had an actual person who was GPS, who would take you to that place. You pay him, he'll take you to that place, because you don't know the way. This was common practice. So when he said, "This is my guide," it made sense. Jazakallah. Rasulullah ﷺ once was going towards Badr, and they ran and came into another clan. They were going for Badr. So now these people ask, "Mimman antum?" Like, where are you from? Now if they say we're from, Medina, then the word's going to spread. They're trying to go quietly. So Rasulullah ﷺ says, "Min ma'in." We're from water. Every person is created from water. And the person, he just, this guy's a smart guy, okay, whatever. He kept going. But he got around the question. So, whenever we're in a situation where we feel that we have to lie, it's always better in those situations to do tawriya. Now, next thing which needs to be discussed. Lying for joking is completely not permissible. And there's a big warning in the hadith about the person who tells a lie just joking around, just to make people laugh. But Rasulullah ﷺ would joke using tawriya. He was asked one time, we all know, by an older lady, will I go to Jannah? He said, "Old women don't go to Jannah." So she starts crying. And then he says, "No, you'll go as a young, fresh, young woman." Another man comes, he's asking for a camel. That he wants, for sadaqah, he wants a camel. So Rasulullah ﷺ says, "We'll give you walad al-naqa. We'll give you the son of a camel." So he's thinking, what can I do with a baby camel? He says, "No, every camel is the son of another camel." It's tawriya. It's tawriya. So the Rasulullah ﷺ used tawriya when telling jokes, and we should also And if we are telling jokes, then we should do this with sunnah. Make the niyyah of sunnah. So even in a situation where you're allowed to lie, it's always afdal and better to do tawriyah. We never want to resort to lying outside of these three situations. And the last thing, which is in this hadith, we won't be able to finish everything, but we'll try. The next thing is qeel wa qaal. We already spoke about the greatness of the tongue. Qeel wa qaal is just gossiping. Gossiping is a total waste of our time and waste of this great ni'mah, which we spent over 20 minutes discussing how much emphasis is placed on your words. Your words are very, very wealthy, valuable. So you don't want to squander them. Don't want to squander them. So a lot of times we don't know what to do. We should be using our wealth, this valuable thing, for something which benefits us. So qeel qaal, this is referring to a hadith. Very important hadith. كَفَى بِالْمَرْءِ كَذِبًا أَنْ يُحَدِّثَ بِكُلِّ مَا سَمِعَ. Rasulullah ﷺ says it is enough to call a person a liar that he transmits everything that he hears. What this tells us is that when we hear things, we have to first find out if it's truthful. We should not just saying, I heard this, I heard this, I heard this, because you will be under the category of those who lie. Of those who lie. So, inshallah, there was more to this hadith. The only thing left in this hadith is the topic of wa'dul banat. And this we will talk about next week, inshallah ta'ala. We'll end here. I hope it was beneficial for everyone, inshallah. Wa akhiru da'wana. Are there any questions before the dua, inshallah?